Welcome to the kismet for the Indiana Jones level. As you can see, most of the code is in subsequences to keep it clean. We'll start with the arrows. Here, the player touches a trigger, which starts firing, which is dummy fire between two target points, and I'm using a matinee to make sure that it keeps going and as a delay. This is the crushing walls. It's 4 for 2 for each wall, and it's sharing matinee data because each one moves the same amount and in a given direction. So one data is moving it left and the other one is moving it right, and it's just physics volumes attached to the walls to kill the player. This is the kismet floor, where the player has to spell the word kismet. As you can see, there's a lot of little bits in here. They're all a mover event, which lets us see when the player is on top of the specific plate, and it just destroys it. Here we have the end sequence. Over here is the little fire that goes across when the player comes into the area. Again, we're using a matinee for timing, but with an event in there to fire the little laser beams. Followed by, when the player gets to the end of the hallway, pop up some credits. Here's the boulder. Now for the boulder, it's a physics actor, but we only wanted it to move once it got to the end, when the player got there. So we're using dummy fire again to shoot it, and it has damage applies impulse. And down at the bottom, you see it's a trigger volume attached to the boulder, so that when the boulder actually hits the player, it'll kill them. Moving on, here we have the sand, which is an interesting little bit. The player enters the room and a little asset is attached to them, basically a bag of sand, which in turn has the particle emitter attached to it. And when the player enters the trigger volume, we're sending the instigator, and it attaches on enter and detaches on exit, so the player doesn't keep it when they're not in that room. Over to the side here, we have the actual code that controls throwing it, the sand. We have a use trigger attached to the emitter, so when he hits the E key to use, he throws some sand, and then a delay stops the sand from flowing again. The interesting thing with the emitter is it has collision in the particle effect and an emissive layer in the material so that it's easier to see. So when the sand goes out and it touches the floor, it sticks and the player can see the floor.